Good morning, everybody. I'm going to give it a minute here to let more people trickle on. Let's see who we have. I see a couple familiar names here. So thank you guys so much for joining. Happy Wednesday. I see some people still connecting to audio, so I'm just going to give it another minute. Let's see here. Make sure I got everybody out of the waiting room. And if everyone wouldn't mind making sure that they are muted, I will take questions at the end here, but I just want to make sure that you guys can all hear me. All right, I'm going to make sure I'm muting everybody, mute all. All right, we are going to get started here. We're a couple of minutes after 10 Central, and I know people have lunch plans or work to do after this, so we're going to get started. So thank you, everybody, for signing up for this webinar on the basics of nutrition. I'm so excited to be chatting with you guys today about all the basics, what to be eating, what to focus on, etc. This is really a presentation to get you guys started. As you guys can tell, this is a virtual presentation, so I do apologize if there's any type of connection issue, internet issue, things like that. Obviously, they occasionally happen, even though we don't want them to, but I'm going to get right on started here with you guys. So we are chatting today about the basics of nutrition. I first off wanted to introduce myself to you guys. So my name is Allison Tallman. I'm a registered dietitian and the founder of Nourished Roots. Nourished Roots is a nutrition consulting company. I operate nationwide with clients, but I am located in Nashville, Tennessee. I'd love to hear from you guys in the chat box where you guys are from. It's always really cool for me as a small business owner to see and hear where my community is coming from. So if you guys wouldn't mind just putting in the chat box where you're located. If you haven't heard of Nourished Roots, I help clients to ditch fad dieting and ditch counting calories for good. So all my clients delete MyFitnessPal, all the dieting apps that are on their phone. I help them to feel freedom from diet culture. I know there's a lot of information out there about dieting. I help them to build a healthy relationship with food, to feel confident in their food choices, to help them to understand nutrition. I know there's so much misleading information out there. So that's why I'm here to help you to make nutrition easier. I see a couple people direct message me: Charlotte, North Carolina, Miami, Austin, Texas, Nashville. So we have people from all over, which is really, really cool for me as a small business owner. So thank you guys so much for coming. I do like to point out my website, nourishedroots.com. And the reason why is because so many of you guys want recipes and resources. I do share a ton of recipes right here for you guys that are all really easy, simple to make. And as you can see right here, a lot of resources as well. We have someone from Chicago. I actually used to live in Chicago. My husband is from there. Brentwood, Tennessee, Maryland. So this is so cool for me to be able to work with you guys from all over the place. So we are going to be, sounds like you're from I use you guys a lot. I'm actually from Massachusetts originally. So maybe that's a Massachusetts thing as well. I do not have a thick Boston accent. You will hear me say wicked potentially, but yes, I say you guys and I do not really say y'all since I'm not really a Southerner. So as I mentioned, we will have a Q&A at the end here. So stick around. I also have a bonus for you guys if you stick around. So I have recipes, personalized recommendations, food lists, and much more. So stick around until the end here. So first we are going to go into macronutrients. So I want to hear from you guys in the chat box. How many of you have heard of macros or macro counting? So put in the chat box, yes or no, or maybe what you've heard of macro counting. Maybe you have done macro counting yourself. Not a lot. So macros, macro counting comes from the word macronutrients. Macronutrients are really the building blocks of our nutrition. So they are the nutrients we need in the largest quantities, the largest amount, and they include carbs, proteins, and fats, which I know everybody here has heard of. So I see a mixed response in the chat here. Some people have heard of macros, some people haven't. So the first macro that we're going to go into is all about carbs. So first things first, I want to get this out of the way. Carbs are not the enemy. I know, or I'm sure a lot of you guys who are here want to potentially lose weight, maybe increase energy, potentially sleep better. Ditching carbs and eliminating carbs will not help you to do any of that. And carbs are anything that are starchy and or taste sweet. And this is because carbs are broken down into molecules of sugar. Has anybody here restricted carbs before? I'd love to hear from you guys in the chat box. Have you guys restricted carbs? Have you counted your carbs? Have you told yourself you can't have carbs before? Some people say yes. Yes to all of it. Yeah. So I do not recommend restricting carbs because carbs are our body's main source of energy and our brain requires carbs. So if you think of eliminating carbs, if you think of like, okay, why am I feeling really yucky and bleh and not sleeping well and I can't focus, is because our brain literally requires carbohydrates to function daily. And this comes in many different sources such as starches, sugars, and fiber. And as I mentioned earlier, for those who are wanting to lose weight, a lot of times you're having trouble losing weight because you're actually not eating enough carbs. So rather than focus on restricting carbs, focus on including more complex carbs and less of the simple carbs. So the simple carbs are things like sugar, simple sugar that's in like candies and cookies, things like that. Not saying you can never have them. I certainly eat them all the time, but I do focus more on the complex carbs, which I'll go into. And the reason that these are less recommended is because essentially it spikes our blood sugar and then our sugar goes back down, versus complex carbs keep us energized and it keeps our blood sugar stabilized. And this is the list of complex carbs and then also some fiber sources that I'll mention at the end here that you should be eating more of. So ideally you want to make more than half of your intake of carbs be complex carbs and less so of these simple carbs. So you should be eating more of whole wheat bread, brown rice, quinoa, oats, oatmeal, barley. Potatoes are actually in the carb category. And then I do put fruits and veggies on here because fruits and vegetables, we're not going to call them a carbohydrate necessarily, but they do contain sugar, which and fiber, and a good natural source of sugar, which keeps us full and satisfied longer. And fiber is actually a type of carb, and it's an indigestible carb. So when you eat fiber, it actually goes down into the bottom part of your gut, and it's promoting good bacteria, good gut health. It regulates your bowel movements. It can reduce your risk of having high cholesterol or even lower cholesterol. It controls your blood sugar, so it keeps your blood sugar stable. It aids in satiety, and it can aid in weight loss as well. So these are sources of fiber. So as I mentioned, those complex carbs on that list before. However, also in fruits and veggies, nuts and seeds, beans, and lentils. So there's lots of great sources of complex carbs that include complex carbs as well as these other things. Most Americans actually do not meet their daily fiber needs. So I'll say that again, most Americans do not meet their daily fiber needs. I bet you at least half you here are probably not meeting your daily fiber needs. So the facts about carbs, your body needs carbs for energy. Plain and simple. Some types of carbs are more nourishing than others, but all carbs can be part of a healthy diet. Eating carbs does not cause diabetes or weight gain. And as I mentioned, most of us here are likely not consuming enough fiber. So switching gears into protein. So every cell in our body relies on protein, and protein helps build and maintain muscle. So I think a lot of us probably know about the muscle component of it. Protein builds muscle. That's what we're, I think, taught starting from a young age. However, our cells rely on it as well. Another really interesting thing is it can help build antibodies. It carries out chemical reactions in our body, and it builds structures within our body. So proteins are built up of amino acids. So amino acids, if you think of like the building block or how you're building something together, protein is broken down into amino acids. So there are many amino acids that our body needs. There are 20, and 9 of those we actually have to get from food. So we can't get anywhere else. We have to get them from food. And animal proteins contain all of those essential amino acids. So things like meat and poultry, seafood and fish, dairy products and eggs, those are all sources that will have all of the amino acids that we need. However, plant-based protein sources are pretty awesome too. So plant-based proteins, they are things like beans and legumes, soy products, so like edamame, tofu, nuts and seeds, whole grains. So something to think about with plant proteins is I think a lot of us could eat more plant-based here, especially if you're a big meat eater. I always recommend trying, I don't say that everyone has to be like a vegetarian or vegan by any means, but I think most of us likely can eat some more plants. And the great thing about eating more plant-based is that you're getting a ton of other nutrients. So looking at animal products are just going to be like the protein as well as saturated fat and some iron and zinc. But in plant-based, you're getting a ton of like fiber and B vitamins and calcium and so many other things that potentially a meat product would be lacking. So which is better? I say it's a hot debate because I would never say like you have to be vegetarian. That's not realistic for everybody. One really great thing about animal proteins is that they do contain amino acids that we need. However, plant proteins provide things that meats do not. And you can still get those amino acids by eating plant-based. You just have to be very much aware of which ones to eat and the combinations, which is something I do help my clients with. And thinking of protein, variety is really the spice of life. I say variety, if you want to eat meat, I say go for it, but how can you eat more plant-based? If you're eating plant-based, how can you get more variety in plant-based products? So really making sure you're just eating a variety, eating balance. And like I said earlier, I think most of us who are meat eaters likely can eat more plant-based foods. So I want you guys to just reflect on this, and maybe you can I'll give you guys a second to absorb a lot of the information I just gave you guys. So I just want you guys to think, and you can feel free to put your thoughts in the chat box or DM me. But do you consume enough protein? Do you think you consume enough? And do you consume protein at every meal and snack? Are you not sure how much protein your body needs? So I'd love to hear from you guys. Do you guys think you are getting enough? Do you think you're not getting enough? I would say probably daily. I talk to at least someone, like a new client or a current client who has this like epiphany that they're not reaching their protein needs, which is why they're not meeting X goal, for example. I'm just here to give you guys a second. Someone said I don't consume enough meat protein. Not sure how much I need to eat. Someone asked, said they're mainly vegetarian and they're cyclist. There's conflicting information. Do you have a rule of thumb? It unfortunately varies per person, so I don't have a general rule of thumb to give everybody here. There's a few dependent things. It's dependent on your age, your goals, your like physical activity levels, your medical history. So there's multiple factors that go into it. So it is hard. I don't like to give like a general rule of thumb because I can tell you that all of you probably need different amounts of protein. think I'm close to consuming enough protein, but I can incorporate a little more earlier in the day. Yes, I recommend trying to include more towards like breakfast if you can. That they're having hair loss. So hair loss can be attributed to inadequate protein as well as inadequate a few other nutrients as well. So that's something that I, reflect on and help my clients with, is making sure they're not being deficient in specific nutrients. Thank you guys for sharing those. Looking at fat. So fat is the final macronutrient. And I think fat has this stigma about it that eating fat is going to make us fat. And that is not true. Healthy fats are great for us. They help us prevent heart disease. They raise good cholesterol and lower bad cholesterol, and they can lower blood pressure. So healthy fats, here's a list. So there's mono unsaturated and there's polyunsaturated. You guys don't need to know the difference between these, but essentially these are things to eat more of. I like to say, like, for the oils, eating more of olive oil or avocado oil, eating more seeds and nuts, fatty fish. I find that a lot of my clients are not eating enough healthy fats. So if you're, wondering this, maybe another reflection point for you guys. The fats to eat less of. So that is the saturated fat. So saturated fat is best limited because it increases your cholesterol, which increases your risk of heart disease. And saturated fat is found in meat products. So, which is why earlier when we're talking about protein, I don't recommend necessarily only eating meat. It's just really about limiting the really fatty products. So things like red meat, for example, whole fat dairy, butter, like coconut and palm oil. So things that are saturated fat is going to be found in meat products and dairy products, essentially. Trans fat is another type of fat, the third type of fat. So there's unsaturated, which is the good fat, saturated, which is the bad fat. Trans fat is another fat that is not really talked about a ton anymore because a lot of products actually got rid of trans fat, which is great. So this is the least healthy fat. It was linked to like cancer, all these other diseases. So most nutrition labels that you'll see now, trans fat will not exist, which is great. But I think it's important to be aware of it. It's found in a lot of like packaged goods. So it's found in like bakery products, for example, like cookies that you buy at like Kroger or the grocery store, packaged goods and snacks, fried foods. And if you ever see on a nutrition label, like partially hydrogenated oils, that can be another way to tell. So the top tips that I give on fats: eat plenty of fats, make sure you're focusing on healthy fats from that first list, eat less of the foods from the saturated fat list, and don't avoid fats. They keep us full. You should be having healthy fats throughout the day. And I'm just going to go back and just show you guys again, just make sure you absorbed the healthy fat list here. So I'll leave this here for a few seconds for you guys. Healthy fats, here, unhealthy. Okay, so micronutrients, the other like keyword here with macros, micronutrients are vitamins and minerals. And it's called micro because we do need them in smaller doses, essentially, not as much as those macros. Most vitamins come from our food because our body can't produce them. And I don't want you guys to think of this necessarily as like water soluble. Like, you guys aren't, in school to become a dietitian. You guys should not memorize this information that I had to. I just like to point out though, there's so many different vitamins, like the B vitamins, vitamin C, vitamins A, D, E, and K, which are fat soluble. One thing I will note is if you are taking, you've been told to take a supplement for fat soluble vitamins. So, and when I was getting my master's, I had to memorize all these, and I just think of it as like ADEC. You should be taking a healthy fat when you are taking this. So if you are taking a vitamin D supplement, for example, have like a scoop of peanut butter with it, because that will help actually absorb it. Otherwise, you might not absorb it very well. So similarly, minerals, small quantities, it helps our body develop and function properly. These are things like calcium, iron, zinc, sodium. I think a lot of like the buzzwords that you've likely heard of before, but potentially don't know enough about. I'm not going to go into these. This could be a whole other presentation. However, I do want this to be the main focus about vitamins and minerals, which is why I went through those quickly, is they're found in so many different foods. A lot of foods are fortified now, like cereals, breads, juices, we'll say like fortified with vitamin D. The long story short with this is that you want to make sure that you're getting a wide variety of foods. So when going back to like eating protein, chicken, for example, you should eat other things and not just chicken all day, every day. You should be eating the most variety in your diet and getting the most color, because that way you're getting the most vitamins and you're getting a diverse range of things. So making your plate as colorful as possible will help you to get all those nutrients. And something I get asked about a lot, well, like, how do I know if I'm deficient? Am I getting enough vitamin D in my diet? One thing, you can get your labs checked by your primary care. I do not recommend doing one of those tests, like a take-home test, things like that. Like, just go to your primary care. If you're worried about certain labs, which I tell my clients, these are labs that you would likely be deficient in because of X. Because, for example, if you're a vegan, you could be deficient in vitamin B12, for example. I would tell you which labs to get checked, but get them checked. Working with a dietitian can help you. There is a specific like diet and plan really that I do recommend to my clients to make sure that you're not deficient in nutrients. And the reason why you don't want to be deficient is because you want to prevent diseases so you can live a long, healthy life. You want to feel good. You don't want your hair to be thinning. You want your nails to be strong. And one way that you can get started with this, this is not my this is one approach you can do. This doesn't give you like the concrete plan that I mentioned earlier, but you can really envision your plate to be half fruits and veggies, a quarter of it be grains, so those complex carbs, a quarter of it be protein. And then this is where your healthy or your fats will come into play. So thinking of like dairy. So here's an example. And I just like to show this because it can look different every day. You can have something like this, or you can have something like this. You could have, if you're making your kids like mac and cheese, for example, and you don't have time to cook yourself a meal, maybe you eat mac and cheese yourself, but maybe you have like a big salad with it. And that would be considered a balanced meal because you're getting in grains, protein, as well as your salad and your veggies. All right, so summary here. Macronutrients they're the three big ones our body needs. These nutrients are all providing us with calories. So one thing to think about too is that carbs are not the only thing that providing us with calories. Protein and fats also do. Balanced meals. All foods can be included. Even any food that I've said today is on like the moderation list. Everything can be included. In terms of micronutrients, eat a well-balanced diet, work with your primary care physician or a dietitian to help you to make sure you're getting foods you need, and get a variety. So eat a wide variety of foods, and that's really going to help you to make sure that you're not deficient. All right, before I take questions from you guys, so start thinking about those. So next step, so thinking of you guys, like you give me all this information, what do I do? So if you're not sure how much protein your body needs, if you're wondering if you're even eating the right foods, if you're confused on how to apply any of this information, because I know that I've thrown a lot at you today to your life and your routine, and if you don't know how to read a nutrition label for high protein and high fiber foods, and if you want to feel confident in your food choices, understand what to eat, how much to eat, and how to eat it, if you want to know how to build consistent eating habits, and if you want to know not let food overwhelm you and stress you out, I have my You're Nourished through self-paced program that I wanted to mention to you guys, and there's something for you guys as well. So You're Nourished through is a 4-week self-paced course designed to build your own foundation of nutrition, create confidence in what and how to eat for your body, and generate an effortless system that will help you keep on track with your goals. So if you are wanting those steps, if you're not sure about things, if you're wanting to feel more confident, this is a self-paced course that is designed to help you to do that. It is a way for you to dip your toe into nutrition and build that foundation so you can start changing your life. There are specific modules that I give you and go over with you, downloadable educational resources. There's worksheets, goal setting prompts, and I give you a ton of recipes that are easy and simple to make. And one really great thing about this self-paced program is once you have access to it, you have access to it forever. So I am always going to be updating information in it. For example, I just uploaded for current members of that 7 meals that you can make with pantry items. So you don't have to go to the grocery store. You can just open your pantry or your fridge and just make a meal. So if you don't have a recipe in mind, or you don't have time to like even cook, really easy meals. So I'm constantly updating things in here. So if you don't have the time to do research, you're overwhelmed by all the nutrition advice out there, if you feel like you're wasting your mental energy and you're defeated, you're stuck, you're not sure if you're even doing the right thing, you can literally get started right now. And again, it's totally self-paced. And I'm giving all of you guys $100 off as well. It is a affordable course, again, self-paced. The code is only valid for the next 72 hours. I will put the link in the chat box, but you can use code BASICS to sign up. And I will take questions now. So I'm going to grab that link for you guys. I want me to do that. Okay, what questions do you have for me today? So if you guys want to take a minute, I'll put this back here. Any questions? Either yell it out loud or put it in the chat box. Okay, let's see. 2 things came through. Someone said, will the replay of this be available after? Yeah, so you will always get the replay after. It will always be sent to your email. If you do not receive it, check your spam box. It will always be there. I promise you, I do send it out. I'm putting a link in here. And again, you can use a code BASICS. So someone messaged me asking, how do I know if I'm getting enough fiber? As I mentioned earlier, most individuals do not get enough fiber in their diet. Signs of inadequate fiber could be inconsistent bowel movements, if you're constipated, or if you're just not going that frequently, if you feel a lack of energy, if you have trouble sleeping, if you have a lack of concentration, if you have high cholesterol. There are so many different things. So I think it's important for you to first focus on, am I getting enough? Secondly, what are my areas that I can target? That's what I always say to my clients, like, well, here are areas that we can include more fiber. And that's, I give my clients those recipes and that specific plan, for example. Okay, someone said, how do I read a nutrition label? So nutrition labels, there's a lot of information on there. So I could do, as I mentioned earlier, I could do a whole presentation on just nutrition labels. It's packed with great information, but it's sad to me that people are never taught what to look for or how to read it. So what I recommend starting out with is, for example, a course like this. There's a whole module on nutrition labels where I bring you through what is high protein, what is high fiber, what should you know about fats, like how to compare 2 different products, things like that. That is so important for for your everyday healthy eating habits. Let's see, someone said they missed the presentation. Yes, you will be able to view it via email. So make sure you check your spam box after this. Someone just said, explain zero sugar drinks like Coke. That's because things like that can have artificial sweetener. Artificial sweetener is not considered real sugar. So it can be called zero sugar. I do not recommend artificial sweeteners. Artificial sweeteners, a study came out in January of this year that artificial sweeteners are highly linked to increased risk of cancer. And so I don't recommend that. If you're wanting to sweeten something, I do recommend using just like honey, for example, which has probiotics in it and stabilizes your blood sugar and is not necessarily related to cancer, as far as we know so far. So I don't recommend things like Diet Coke. Yeah. Any other questions? All right. Well, again, the $100 off will just be available for 72 hours. So if you guys are debating on it, I do recommend it. Again, it is a place to get you guys started, and you'll have access to that portal forever. So I'm always uploading new information. If there's information you want that's not in there, then I'm always open for feedback and always willing to add more in there. So let me know if you guys do have any questions. How
much is the course to begin with?
Yes. If you click that link, I can show it to you guys. Let me stop my sharing for a second. All right. Okay. So the course is either you can pay in full for $297, or you can get the $100 off one of the payments. So again, the course can be yours for $197, and you'll have access to it forever as well. Any other questions about this or anything else, you guys?
All
right. Well, thank you guys so much for coming this morning. I appreciate all of you guys. I'll stop the recording after this, but if you guys have any questions that you want to direct message me, I'll stick around for a few minutes. And I appreciate all of you guys coming today to better your health. I would love to see some of you guys in the course. I think it'd be really beneficial. Again, very affordable. Use the $100 off code BASICS for the next 72 hours. And I appreciate all of you. I hope everyone has a good Wednesday.
Thank you.
Thank you.